I'm Clay Emo. I'm at Canuck Clay on Twitter. I'm at Clayton Emo on Instagram. I'm the founder of the GLCBC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club, and it's my Canucks take, all in one take. It's Clay's Canucks commentary for Wednesday, January the 29th. And before I talk about the Seattle expansion draft, although it's still 18 months away, but I still want to talk about it, let's talk about tonight's game. The Vancouver Canucks look to continue their winning streak, look to beat the San Jose Sharks for the second time in just a couple weeks. You remember it was the San Jose Sharks that the Canucks last played before they broke for their All-Star break. That was that Lunar New Year game at Rogers Arena. They took their week break, they came back, and they beat the St. Louis Blues on Monday night at Rogers Arena, which is pretty cool. And now tonight they're playing in San Jose, a 7:30 start. It's the same San Jose team that, well, we saw 2 weeks ago. They're not that good. They got a lot of high-paid guys who aren't producing, and there was that little brouhaha between Joe Thornton and Brandon Sutter. We'll see if anything results from that tonight. Of course, there's the other game, the bigger brouhaha that we expect is Calgary and Edmonton playing tonight, but I'll get to that in a second. And then for the Canucks tonight, no changes from the Monday night lineup except in net, where it's now Jacob Markstrom instead of Thatcher Demko. So on the blue line, it's Edler, Stetcher, Hughes, Tanev, Myers, and Fantenberg. And then up front, you still have Virtanen playing on the top line and Besser playing on the third line. So it's Pettersson, Miller, Virtanen, Horvat, Pearson, Eriksson, then Gaudette, Roussel, and Besser, and then Beagle, Sutter, and Motts. So there you go. Don't have to talk too much about the lineup. It's the same thing that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. Is Virtanen fixture on the top line? Is Besser ever going to get back to the top line? Is this just a way that for Travis Green to experiment a little bit? Is it a way to get Gaudette and Roussel going? Is it you hope that they do a little bit more actually with a talented player like Besser? Is it a way to get Virtanen going, which he certainly is, and the fact that they don't want to touch the second line right now with Louis Eriksson? And that's my dog Mickey's tail that you see on my right side there, kind of right there. I'm at home obviously recording this before I go to church today. So that's what the Canucks look like. They should win. You hopefully win and expand their lead atop the Pacific Division. They're 2 points up on Calgary right now. Calgary's in action, playing in that much hotly anticipated rematch with the Edmonton Oilers, and obviously with the Kachuk and Kassian thing. We'll see what happens there, and more importantly to the Canucks, both teams chasing the Vancouver Canucks as well. Arizona Coyotes also in action tonight. The Vegas Golden Knights, the only one of the five top teams in the Pacific that aren't playing tonight. So we'll track that as always as we go. So for today, not much to talk about the game really, because there are no lineup changes except for the goaltender. Canucks are playing well. We know all that. I want to talk about a story that appeared in the Athletic yesterday, and it was Eric Duhatschek predicting what Seattle's roster is going to look like when they come up with when they do their expansion draft in June of 2021. And then he did this like a few months ago, and now he's doing it 18 months out. I'm sure he'll do a couple more. And now Mickey's getting really comfortable, you can see there. And I'm sure he'll do this a couple more times before June 2021. But that's when Seattle will do their expansion draft. And we won't go through all the rules today because we know that there are a lot of things that we'll have a lot of time to go over this. But what you really need to know now is that teams have an option to choose to protect either 11 players, 7 forwards, 3 D-men, 1 goalie, or only 9 players, and that would be 8 skaters and 1 goalie. And they do that second option just in case you don't want to protect 3 D-men, right? And if you want to protect all forwards for some reason. Or if you want to protect more than 3 D-men, which I highly doubt anyone would do, but most teams usually go with the 7, 3, and 1 option as opposed to the 8 and 1 option. It just means you're protecting more players. And we know that Vegas came up with a bunch of side deals. They did it really well, right? They would work out side deals with teams, and they would say, hey, don't take this guy in the expansion draft, and we'll give you this, either a prospect or a draft pick or another player. And Vegas obviously built a really strong team really quickly, and they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals in their first year. So you think GMs will be a little more careful this time, seeing what happened with Vegas, but there are still a lot of tough decisions to make, and the Vancouver Canucks are one of those teams that are going to have to make some tough decisions. So Eric Duhatschek projected this as the protected list for the Vancouver Canucks. Up front, the 7 forwards would be Horvat, Pettersson, Besser, Miller, Virtanen, Gaudette, and Pearson. The 3D would be Myers, Edler, and Juolevi, and the goaltender would be Markstrom. Quinn Hughes, Jet Wu will not have to be protected because they won't have enough, they're not old enough, not enough experience, not enough man games. So that's good. We don't have to use a spot on Quinn Hughes. And then that means guys that could potentially be available and remember, this is presuming these guys are under contract, and I'll get to that in a second, are guys like Demko, Stetcher, Tanev, Beagle, Sutter, Roussel, and Furland, and a few more guys like that. So I think we should talk about why he made these predictions, and let's talk about if we agree with these. So it's important to note that heading into, at the end of the 2021 season, not all these guys are going to be under contract. So in Duhatschek's column, he's obviously presuming that the Canucks are going to re-sign players like Tanner Pearson, who's done very well, one of our best forwards since he's coming over in the trade deadline, re-signing guys like Gaudette and Virtanen, who will be restricted free agents, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what, because when you look at it, actually there's only 6 or 7 forwards that are right now currently under contract for past 2021, like basically from July 1 onwards, and that's the big 3 up front of Horvat, Besser, and Miller, and then Pettersson will obviously get a contract, but right now it's Horvat, Pettersson, and Miller, and actually I think it's only Roussel and Beagle that have contracts, and Sutter maybe, that have contracts past 2021. Then on D, it's only Tyler Myers that has a contract right now past 2021. So, you know, a lot of interesting things, but obviously you have to make some presumptions. You can't just presume that we don't have to protect all these guys because they don't have a contract right now. So let's look at the forwards firstly. Like I said, it's Horvat, Besser, and Miller. No questions there for sure. Pettersson will be the fourth one. Obviously, he doesn't have a contract past 2021, but he will. So that's the big 4 for sure is Pettersson, Horvat, Besser, and Miller. Then it goes to Tanner Pearson, who's basically been a point per game for the last little bit. And then you go Adam Gaudette and Jake Virtanen. So with Tanner Pearson, it presumes re-signing him when his contract winds up. And then with Virtanen and Gaudette, it presumes that they're here at the end of next year. Gaudette most likely will be, and Virtanen will be. It's just a matter of how much these guys are going to be making in their next contract. So I think the forwards are a pretty safe bet. Where it gets into, and that means exposing guys like Roussel and Beagle and Sutter, whose contracts might not be done, and Louis Eriksson, of course, as well. But just because you expose them doesn't mean that Seattle's going to take them. Seattle only has to take one player. They only get to take one player from each team. And you think that the Canucks will have more attractive options on D. So on D, it's only Tyler Myers that has a contract past the 2020-2021 season. Alex Edler will be a UFA by then, so that'll be an interesting thing. Do the Canucks re-sign him again and protect him? And then Olli Juolevi was his third one, but he still hasn't played a game for the Canucks, so that's the biggest wild card to me. You don't have to protect Quinn Hughes, and then that's not protecting anyone like Stetcher or Chris Tanev. So it's very hard to predict right now because we don't know who the Canucks are going to sign this summer in advance of next summer, the expansion draft. And there's a lot of talk, well, can you get Markstrom, Tanev, Stetcher, and Virtanen all done this summer? To me, as much as I love Chris Tanev, I love his experience and I love his warrior mentality, I'm still taking Troy Stetcher. I'm still spending money on Troy Stetcher, not just because he's from Richmond, but because he plays more of a style that I think the NHL is going to, and I think that Stetcher still has a lot of good years in him. He's very, very consistent, and I just think the way he plays is going to be more in sync with how the NHL continues to move. Mobile, good puck-moving defenseman. Tanev is good. I'm not saying Tanev's not good, but if I had to pick one, I would pick Stetcher over Tanev. So does that mean Tanev is signed for less amount and exposed? Does that mean Tanev is not even on our roster by then? That's a really good question. So and then maybe you expose Juolevi. Yes, it's kind of bad, but because people will think he's a draft bust. But at the same time, maybe Seattle doesn't take him, right? So it's one thing to expose someone, but you got to think, will they take him? Seattle's not going to take Eriksson. Seattle's not going to likely take a guy like Beagle or Sutter, or maybe they will. I don't know. They're likely not going to take a guy like Olli Juolevi if he hasn't proven anything. So you could technically actually expose Olli Juolevi, and then you could then end up protecting Myers, Stetcher, and Edler, or Myers, Stetcher, and Tanev, or Myers and any combination of Stetcher, Edler, and Tanev. So that's one thing you can think about on the defenseman side. And then of course the goalie. This is the storyline we're going to be talking about for the next 4 or 5 months as the Canucks continue to play well, as both goalies continue to play well. Jacob Markstrom, an all-star, Thatcher Demko, an all-star performance on Monday against St. Louis. It's really fascinating, and this one I think we're going to talk about every day. It comes up every week on my live stream. It comes up every day when I meet Canucks fans at the arena. It's what's going to happen with the goalies. I think we can all presume that they are going to look to re-sign Markstrom. We don't know the money. We don't know the term. And then kind of play it by ear with Thatcher Demko. And my first reaction is Seattle would be smart to snap Demko up for sure if he's left exposed because of his age and his pedigree. But there are going to be a lot of other good goaltenders available next year for Seattle to choose. And a lot can happen in the next 18 months. So I'm not saying it's a done deal, but if the Canucks start anticipating that it is going to trend that way, if they do indeed protect Markstrom and not Demko, then are they looking to trade Demko so they don't have to worry about that? Are they looking to work out a side deal with Seattle and hope that they don't get hooped? Or are they going to expose him and hope that Seattle doesn't pick him? But then using my theory about not picking Juolevi or Eriksson or Sutter, maybe Demko is certainly going to be the best Vancouver Canucks player available to Seattle. So there are so many factors. So I can't really disagree with Eric's list. I would definitely go with the big four up front, Pettersson, Besser, Horvat, Miller. Yes, I would protect Jake Virtanen, so that's already 5. And then if Gaudette continues to improve, that's my number 6. And yeah, you can't argue with Tanner Pearson, 7. You'd protect him ahead of guys like Ferland, Beagle, Sutter, Roussel, Mott, Schaller, Levo, all those guys. So those 7 make sense. On D, I think it will be Myers, Edler if he resigns again, and Stetcher as opposed to Tanev. I have a feeling they might expose Juolevi, but they might get a lot of flack, but it might be the right thing to do. And then in goal, unless it's really, really tough. It's either Demko or Markstrom. You could expose Markstrom. I hope they don't take him because Markstrom's so expensive. But then you wouldn't just prop Markstrom's value up just to do that, because then if they don't pick him, then you end up paying him whatever you signed him for. So I think you guys know what I mean. So there's a lot of things, but I think it's kind of fascinating. And we're not going to dwell too much on it now, even though I just spent the last 12 minutes talking about it. But what do you think? Do you agree with Dehacek's picks? Do you agree with my pick that maybe you can risk exposing Juolevi and protecting a guy like Stetcher, presuming we're going to re-sign him? There's a lot of ways we can go at it, a lot of time to talk about it, but I love your initial feedback to not only my picks, which are basically the same as Dehacek's picks, except for Stetcher instead of Juolevi, or do you want to go off the board and lay out your own 11 players down below? Whatever you want to do, leave a comment below. I love to read, react, and reply. As always, subscribe if you'd like to, like this video if you'd like to. Enjoy the day. Enjoy tonight's game. Canucks and the Sharks. Canucks looking to widen their gap even further, even bigger, whatever the word is, increase their lead atop the Pacific Division. God bless. Go Canucks, go.